Hey you guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. So I'm really excited for today's video. I've been very much getting back into dabbling in eyeshadow palettes and I've been having a lot of fun with that. And so I decided I wanted to do an idea for a video that I've had for a while, and that is if I could only keep 10 eyeshadow palettes of my entire collection. Now keep in mind, I have over 100 eyeshadow palettes, so these were not easy decisions. But I have picked out of my collection the 10 eyeshadow palettes I would keep if I was only allowed to have a collection of 10 eyeshadow palettes. Now, let me kind of clarify quickly before we get into it. These are not my 10 favorite palettes, okay? That would be a different set. I mean, a lot of them would be the same, but not all of them would be the same. These are not my 10 most favorite palettes in my collection. These are if I wanted a collection of 10 palettes that I felt like was complete and that I could get the looks that I wanted out of. These would be those 10. I think that will make more sense as we progress through the palettes, so let's go ahead and get started. So if you've been around here before, also, you can just tell by looking at me, I'm a neutral girly, right? Like, I used to be big into all the colorful stuff, and that's just not me anymore. I still like a good colorful look, but 9 times out of 10, or really like 99 times out of 100, it's gonna be neutral, right? So, the bulk of this is gonna make neutral looks. So, first things first, my ride or die, my staple neutral palette that I refuse to be without, the Colourpop Going Coconuts palette. This is a necessary element of my eyeshadow palette collection. It is just the most perfect neutral palette there ever was. You can do cooler tones, warmer tones. You've got shimmers of different depths. I mean, you can do so many neutral looks with this palette. I travel with this palette constantly. As you can see, it's been very well loved and used, and the shimmer in the middle, Cocoa Crush, is one of my favorite eyeshadows that I own. It's just so shiny and beautiful. So obviously Going Coconuts, if I could only have 10, has to be one of them. So then I was thinking, okay, I want some more neutral options, but like, what am I looking for, right? And so I decided that some things that were important were to have lots of different depths of a neutral matte, and then some different shimmer options as well. I really have been into like the sparkly topper type of shimmer lately, and a lot of times I'll go to my single shadows for that, but I was saying, okay, in this thought experiment, I can only use these eyeshadows to make a look, right? And I want that like sparkly topper feel. So of course, I went for a very new addition to my collection, but a very loved addition, the Patrick Ta Major Dimension palette. So this palette has a lot of the things that I feel like I go for all the time. It has these gorgeous sparkly topper shades down here, these right here. They're so sparkly and beautiful and flaky and just yummy. And it also has these cream shadows up here. I've also been a huge lover of cream shadows lately. So one thing that I will do literally all the time with my singles is pop a neutral cream shadow in the crease and then a glittery topper shade on the lid and call it a day. So I could make that look using this palette. It also has, like I said, so many different depths of matte shadow. And then it also has a couple of deeper shimmers as well. So I feel like you can still get a lot of versatility out of this palette. Let me show you just how flaky and gorgeous these shimmery toppers are. And you will see like why I could not have them. They're just gorgeous. I mean, look, I am a Space Cowboy girly. I love Urban Decay Space Cowboy. But again, I'm like imagining these are the only eyeshadows I can use. Do you see how flaky and delicious that is? Yeah, so I absolutely have to have that. The cream formula in there is also just phenomenal. It's so good. So I feel like I'd be set for like my day-to-day eyeshadow look of doing cream in the crease, sparkly topper on the lid. So that was a must-have as well. So both of those palettes are kind of true neutral or neutral leaning warm. And I do like to dabble in the cool tone neutrals every once in a while. And when I thought, okay, if I had one cool tone neutral palette, what would it be? That was also a really easy decision for me. Colourpop That's Taupe. Yeah, I really love Colourpop palettes. I really do. And this one, I mean, the snakeskin packaging, hello. This is just a perfect cool tone palette. I'm more of a warm tone girl. Like, if I'm picking one for the rest of my life, I would wear warm tones like golds and orangey browns and things like that. But if I'm pulling for cool tones, this is exactly what I'm looking for. Perfect taupe transition shades on the top, something a little bit gray, something browner, and then these unbelievable shimmer shades. This one is a super shock shadow. It's kind of dried out, but it's still unbelievably reflective. And then I'll swatch Snake Eyes as well. Just literally, if I'm going for cool tones, this is everything I could ever want and need. I love it so much. Staple palette in my collection, could not be without it. So then as I'm thinking about making these cool toned looks, I'm like, ooh, but if I want to do a really glam cool toned look, I feel like maybe I would want some additional mattes, not too many, but just a couple more mattes, and then like a crazy silver. Like, my idea of a glam look is to do this deep smoky crease in cool tones and then silver on the lid, right? So naturally I had to go for the craziest silver option in my collection, which is in the Nobla Platinum Cutie palette. I also knew I wanted to pick at least one cutie palette because I just love these. I have 5 of these and I love them, and it would break my heart if I couldn't have any of them in my collection. This isn't necessarily even my favorite of the cutie palettes, but it brings something to the table that I feel like I can't get in any of these other palettes, which are these unbelievable shimmers, especially the silver and the gunmetal shades. They are so glittery, so shiny. Just I've never seen a crazier silver than that. It also has these really interesting kind of grungy, warmer tones, as well as this like grungy matte, which I think would help with warm tone looks as well if I want to go in more of a grungy direction. But really, it's about the silver and the gunmetal for me. Just look at that silver. It looks like aluminum foil, and the gunmetal is so sparkly too. So yes, when I was trying to figure out just one of my beloved cutie palettes to keep, this one for me, in the context of the rest of these 10 palettes, brings the most unique stuff to the table. So Platinum Cutie palette is the next one that would get to stay. So like I said before, I am truly, at the end of the day, a warm tone girly. And while I feel like there are some options for warm tones in Going Coconuts and the Patrick Ta palette, none of them are that like delicious orange, gold, bronze, really metallic, rich kind of thing that I look for, like sunset eye, but in neutrals, you know? So of course, if you know me, you know, the Natasha Denona bronze palette would have to remain in my collection. This, if I'm doing looks summer and fall, I'm pulling for this constantly. Constantly. This is a warm tone lover's paradise. And like, yeah, do a lot of the shimmers kind of pull similarly on the eye? Sure. I mean, they're golds and bronzes. That's what happens, right? But my God, this formula is beautiful. The matte selection in here is perfect if you love warm tones. And those pops of those kind of purpley shades up in this corner here, I feel like really add something unique to this palette as well that none of these other ones are bringing to the table. I'm going to show you swatches of a couple of these shades because I'm just obsessed. Let's see, I'm going to do Alloy Bliss because it's a really interesting duochrome, and then Silk, which I think is my favorite shade in the palette. So we have like a true gold, this interesting duochrome, and then kind of a rosy gold bronze type of moment. So that's what those look like. That one is Alloy. It's that really true, intense yellowy gold. Bliss is this middle shade, and I don't even know if you can really appreciate it on camera, but it's this kind of corally pink, and it has this orangey and almost greeny reflect. It's really interesting. And then Silk obviously is over here stealing the show, being the most gorgeous, reflective. Bronze with like a rosy undertone, in my opinion. It's so pretty. This is just such a good palette. This is a staple in my collection, and as a warm-toned lover, I would be remiss if I left it out of my 10 that I would keep. So we've been very neutral for these first 5, right? Like this is half the collection, and they're very neutral options. The next few I want to show you are still partially neutral or like half neutral, but there's also something really fun and interesting in there as well. And so, of course, if you've heard me talk about Anastasia Beverly Hills before, you know that my pride and joy, the best thing they've ever come out with, is the Jackie Aina palette. It is a crying shame that they no longer sell this. It is a travesty that this is not available, because look at that color story. Are you joking? You can get a neutral look out of this, you know? Like, if you go over to this corner, you can grab those brown mattes over here. You could pop that brown shimmer or one of these over here on your lid. But you can also get a super colorful look out of this. These pinks are phenomenal. That purple matte is so well formulated, and purple mattes are hard to make. My favorite look I do with this literally all the time, if you're looking for some fun, like, inspiration with this palette, by the way. And this look alone is part of the reason it has to be in my 10, because I'm so obsessed with it. Putting those pinks in the crease, so like using Supreme as a transition and then Pinker as like a deepening up shade, and then using this green-brown duochrome sponsored on the lid, sounds like a super weird combo, but it looks so good. And also, hello, look at that. I knew I couldn't be without a green-brown duochrome. That's like my favorite type of duochrome. So this one has exactly what I'm looking for in spades. I can do pinks and purples. I can do greeny looks, grungy stuff, warm neutrals. It's got it all. I love this palette, and I could not have it in my 10. So this is the last one I would say is like truly, at least mostly neutral. And I'm sure this is not going to surprise anybody. Did you really think I wouldn't have a Pat McGrath palette in here? I am a Pat McGrath stan. Obviously, I would need at least one of my Pat palettes. And of course, if I was picking one of my Pat palettes, you know it's Bronze Seduction. You know it is. Mothership 5 is the blueprint of the Mothership palettes. I mean, this was my first. She is still my favorite. She's my baby. I could not be without her. The special shades in this are second to none. Oh my God, this one up here, it's like this gold, yellowy gold, but it flips green and blue, and then has like kind of a pink shift. Is fascinating. Fascinating. Oh my God, this so does not do it justice. You can kind of see the pink flip though, a little. If you want to get a really good idea of what the special shades in this palette look like, I have a whole video swatching Pat McGrath's special shades on my channel, but this is just, I literally do not have words to describe how much I love this palette, and I could never be without it. If I lost this today, I'd go out and repurchase it tomorrow. Full price even, I don't even care. I love this palette so much. Obviously, it's going to be in my 10. It has the most approachable neutrals, but you can also make it so fun with like the purple and the red and the yellowy, greeny, bluey scrumptiousness. I could go on, but I'm not going to. This, of course, makes the cut. I will say, though, the idea of not being able to keep all of my Pat palettes pains me. It pains me. But I feel like we need to round out this collection a little bit because it's very neutral right now. It's got some pops of color, right? But it's very neutral. And I'm a neutral girly, like I said, but I like to dabble, right? I like to play around. And so, of course, one of the things that I love to do if I'm playing with color, I love like pinks and berries and mauves and things like that because I have green eyes and it just makes them pop. They're so much fun to play with, especially like in the winter and springtime. I cannot be without like a solid mauve and berry palette. And so, of course, I would have my Natasha Denona Retro palette. This is, I think, my favorite Natasha Denona palette, which is surprising considering how much I love, like, my bronze, my mini nude, like, all of those super warm neutral ones. But this is just, like, what makes Natasha Denona so special. It has these like flaky toppery shimmers, the crazy high shine metallic shimmers. It's got her cream to powder formula, her normal powder matte formula. Like everything that makes Natasha Denona is in this palette, and it's immaculate. They are so well done, and the tones are perfection. I mean, really, you can go kind of cool toned neutral a little bit if you think about it, but you can also get such a rich red and pink look. I mean, this is so much more versatile than I think people give it credit for. And if I was going to keep one berry toned pink palette in my collection, it would have to be this. Have to be. I love this. So we're up to 8. And for the last 2 palettes, I wanted to do something a little bit more fun. I feel like right now, if I wanted to do colorful, all I can really do is like variations on purple and pink, right? And they're kind of muted versions of purple and pink. So I wanted to bring in some of the big guns. First things first, I love using green. I'm a green fan. If I'm gonna do color, green is one of the ones that I'll pull for first. So I had to go for my favorite green palette in my collection, BH Avocado Toast. This is such a gorgeous palette. The formula is so beautiful. Those green mattes perform crazy. You would never believe this was an $18 palette. Actually, I paid less than that. I paid like $5. But full price, this is an $18 palette, and you'd never believe it with how it performs. But you can actually get neutral looks out of this too. I have pulled out this palette and just used these like brown tones with this like rose gold and the glitter on the lid, and it's a full brown neutral look from this palette. So it's so versatile, and I could bring these greens in with some of the other neutrals. I could bring in like this shimmer here, Haas, which is this like olivey green shimmer. And I could bring that in with the neutrals from one of the neutral palettes and make it something more interesting, you know? So if I want to bring greens into any look, and I do love to bring a little grungy swampiness into a look, this is the perfect way to do it. Love this palette. Has to be in my 10. Finally, number 10. Number 10 was the hardest for me to pick. I spent ages sitting in front of my palette drawers just going, oh my God, what am I gonna do for number 10? I knew I wanted to do something more colorful because, again, I have all of these neutral options, and if I want to bring in pops of color or I want to do all colorful looks, which sometimes I do, I just needed an option that would really have anything I needed to make that happen. If I want to bring in like a bright blue shadow liner, if I want to do a hot pink look, if I want to do purples, you know, like I just wanted to have the variety available. And I don't have a lot of palettes like that. But as soon as I saw this one, I went, yeah, that's the one that would work the best. If I wanted the max versatility, it's the GLL Light Barbie palette. Now, full disclosure, I haven't had this all that long, and I haven't used it that many times. That's because the color story is kind of a lot. I bought this to kind of dip my toes into GLL Light's formula. It was around the time the Barbie movie came out, and so I was really excited about it when I found it in a Marshall's. And let me tell you, the quality of this palette is sensational. These mattes are so pigmented, but they also are not chalky. They're not powdery. They blend like butter. These shimmers are some of the most special, glittery, multifaceted shimmers I've ever used. And I just feel like no matter what I wanted to do in terms of bringing color into a look, I could do it with this palette. You know, say I did an all neutral crease and then I wanted to bring in this really fun, like shifty turquoise shimmer. That would be a really fun thing to look at that. Insanely stunning. I could do monochrome pink, right? I could do monochrome purple. I could do monochrome blue. I could even do a neutral look with this palette, really. Like, the options are there. I could bring in this rich cobalt or this teal if I wanted like a statement shadow liner. I mean, the options here are really limitless in terms of bringing color into the picture. And the one color it doesn't really have is green. So between these, I've basically got a rainbow, at least in terms of stuff that I use, you know? I don't really have like reds and that kind of thing, but I have a little bit of red in some of these other options, and I don't really do red all that often anyway. I don't really have yellows, but again, it's not something I pull for all the time. And if I wanted some yellows, there are a couple of yellow options in here. So I really feel like I cover the rainbow and every neutral tone I could ever want in these 10. But I want to know what you think. If you could only keep 10 palettes, what are some of the things you'd be thinking about if you were picking your 10? If you have more than 10 palettes in your collection, which 10 would you keep? I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts and your thought process and how you would figure it out. That being said, that is the end of this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun thinking about this, and honestly, I genuinely think I would be happy with just these 10 palettes. Not that I'm gonna get rid of the rest of my palettes. I love them way too much. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like down below, leave me a comment, and if you want to see more from me, please hit subscribe. I would absolutely love to have you, and until the next one, bye you guys.